Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Appleton Candidate Forum for District 5 for the City of Appleton. We are standing on traditional, ancestral, and contemporary lands of Indigenous peoples. Here where I sit and stand, these are the homelands of the Menominee people. In addition to the Menominee Nation, there are 10 other federally recognized Native American sovereign nations in Wisconsin, as well as the brother town that is not yet recognized. Today, we honor the Potawatomi. The Potawatomi are the keepers of the fire. For the Anishinaabe, like many Indigenous peoples and nations, they were removed from their ancestral lands because of the Indian Removal Act of 1830. Many of their ancestors made the long walk to Kansas, and many died on that walk. It's now known as the Potawatomi Trail of Death. Many of the families walked back and some never left. It wasn't until the early 20th century when they were acknowledged and offered reservation land in Forest County. We thank them for their diligence and love of the land. By acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional land of these sovereign nations, we honor with gratitude the land itself and all of the winged, two-legged, four-legged, many-legged, and the water peoples who have stewarded the land and water throughout the generations and for generations to come. Thank you all for your patience in starting this forum and for your interest in the forum and for your support of the democratic process. This is a nonpartisan candidate forum for voters to get to hear what the candidates have to say. It is not a campaign event and not a debate. We stand for civil discourse. The candidates understand that no candidate information is allowed to be displayed during this event. This Zoom forum is being recorded and will be made available on both vote411.org, the League's Webby Award-winning website, and the League of Women Voters of Appleton website. It is also being live streamed on Facebook. We ask all those watching this forum to refrain from making any partisan comments on the League of Women Voters Facebook page. Any partisan comments will be deleted to conform with the League of Women Voters nonpartisan policy. Any questions sent to the League's email will be sent to the candidates and their answers will be added to the candidate voter guide. The League of Women Voters of Appleton owns the copyright to any audio or visual recording of these events. Unauthorized videotaping falls under the rules of the FCC, which requires that a forum must not be edited and must be broadcast in its entirety, either live or reasonably soon after it takes place. In addition, the League of Women Voters of Appleton Candidate Forum must not be referenced as a source in any campaign materials. While there is not a sign language interpreter, there will be closed captioning available on the YouTube video, which will be available through the League's website. Prior to tonight's forum, residents were invited to submit questions to the League email. Some of those questions will be heard tonight. These questions have been sorted before they were sent forward. This was not to eliminate questions, but rather to group them into like categories so that we have the opportunity to ask as many questions as needed to cover a variety of topics. We have a timekeeper. The League has always found this process to be a good means to keep us on track and moving along. It is not meant to cut people off or diminish the importance of a response, but simply to use our time wisely. And finally, we would like to acknowledge the candidates from District 5, Katie Van Zeelen and Mark Gabriel. We are all grateful and thank them for their willingness to run for office and serve their community. Jacqueline Klimaszewski is Director of Voter Services for the League of Women Voters. Jacqueline has planned and organized this forum. She will be presenting the questions to the candidates. Jackie?
Thank you, Jean. Let me add my gratitude to the candidates for your time, your persistence, and your patience tonight in getting this started. It's important to share your viewpoints with our voters, and I want to thank all of those who are watching this for caring enough to be informed when you cast your votes in the election on April 6th. Jean talked about the questions. All questions asked and unasked will be sent electronically to the candidates after the forum, and their written responses will be on the League website for you to view and use when deciding your vote. For each question, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond. The first question will be 2 minutes. After that, they are all 1.5 minutes. This will be monitored by our timekeeper, Julie, and she has paddles so everyone knows how much time is left. There they are, so that the candidates know and can judge how much time they have left. We will alternate which candidate replies to the question so that they both have a chance to go first and to go second. So the first response from the candidates will be about introducing themselves, providing your background and your interest in city council seat going. And we will start in the order that they're on the ballot. So candidate Van Zeeland will go first, and then candidate Gabriel. So candidate Van Zeeland, introduce yourself and explain why you are running for alderperson.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity. I really appreciate all the work that goes into this. I know that it's not easy. I appreciate everything that you do to spur participation in local government as well. My name is Katie Van Zeeland, and I'm running for re-election in District 5, which is where I live with my husband and my son. My son is school-aged. I was raised to believe that we use our time and our talents to improve our church and our community. As a taxpayer, I want to be a good steward of our tax funds. And as a mother, I want to raise my son in a community that is safe and that is clean. And I want to have a high quality of life for him. I would say, like many mothers, I have kind of a different professional trajectory than most. My background professionally before I had my son was in sales and technology for government compliance. Then I had my son and stayed home with him for a while. Because of some of his challenges, he's autistic, I wasn't able to go back to work as I had thought I would. So I started my second career. That was opening a home daycare. So I've been a caregiver for other people's children, helped to get him ready for school and be around some peers. And then from there, once he went into school, I've had the opportunity to work at my church on the finance council and in faith formation, and ended up working with student teachers at Lawrence University, and now an alderperson and vice president of the city council for the last year. I was elected in 2019. I was the first or one of the only incoming alders to chair a committee. And I look forward to having hearing all of the questions from you and from the members of the district.
Thank you. Candidate Gabriel.
Hello, I want to thank you, League of Women Voters, and Katie for being able to do this. I apologize for the problems we had earlier. And this is a great opportunity for us as candidates, and thank you for it. So I am a longtime resident of Appleton. I was born and raised right here in my hometown. And I went to school, you know, at in all the public schools. I was in Franklin, Huntley, Einstein, and Appleton West. Yeah, I went off to college, lived in Michigan and Texas, came back to Wisconsin to help take care of my elderly parents and be with them in the last days of their lives. So that I was grateful for that. And so I've been here, you know, ever since. So that's over 41 years total. I'm a homeowner. I'm married to a lovely wife, Michelle, and been happy here, happily married. And that was first time marriage for me. So I married later in life. I work in the financial services industry as a business payments consultant. And work from home, which has been great, you know, for me anyway. I know it's not so good for a lot of people, you know, with the COVID and everything. My school and experience in government is that I have a degree in civil engineering from the University of Minnesota, and
Thank
graduated.
you, Mr. Gabriel. Thank you. You will
Okay.
start our next question. What is the value of a library to a community and who does it serve?
So, I mean, I grew up going to libraries as a child, and I remember to this day just the benefit of that. It got me reading. I think so important to be reading. I think a lot of young people miss that opportunity or don't take advantage of it. I was challenged to read a book like every month or something like that, or once a week. I forget, but those I to this day I remember that experience and the joy of taking advantage of the library and learning. You know, I as an adult I've used the library where I've worked right across the street from Appleton Public Library, so I've utilized it myself. I mean, it's a great resource, a great resource for parents, for adults. And it's a valuable thing. You know, I know there's an issue with the library that, you know, I've learned quite a bit about. Don't have all the facts together, but I think that, you know, I would want to talk to the residents, see what their thoughts are as far as, you know, what to do with the plans for the library in the future.
Okay, Candidate Van Zeeland.
Thank you. A library is very important to the community. It's not just a place that has books. Not only is it important to the citizens, it's also important to prospective businesses. A lot of businesses and nonprofits use the library. And I think, unfortunately, the library we have now doesn't meet the needs of a modern library, which serves people quite differently than it did when I was younger. So I think investing in a library in the current location is the best option that we have. It's going to change the neighborhood, make it vibrant and walkable. And the library serves people who, Director Rortfeld once said, that it's a place for people who are going through transitions. You know, I didn't use the library until I had a little boy again. And now I'm back at the library. You know, it might be the loss of a job or a spouse. But the library serves everyone in Appleton and even surrounding communities because we're a hub library. But it also helps those who can't afford access to the internet, materials at home, and serves for as a community for people who might otherwise be isolated.
Okay, thank you. And we will start with Candidate Van Zeeland for this question. According to an article in the Post-Crescent, the city has budgeted $2.4 million this year for library design services, and it has also identified that $12 million will be needed in 2022 and again in 2023 for construction. Do you support this level of expenditure for library construction? And please explain why or why not.
Well, I could say that with the information I have right now, I support budgeting this amount for a project of this size. I think we need to be prepared and not surprised by how much money we've set aside. That's not to say we're going to try to max out the budget. You know, the library project is a multi-step project. It's transparent to the public, so we'll all have a lot of input in what the money gets spent on. And ultimately, council will be voting on a lot of these expenditures. I've not yet voted on anything to do with the library besides just the budget portion. So when that time comes, I'll listen to the constituent feedback. I'll look at all of the information available to me. But like I said before, I think the library renovation at the current site is its best option, and we will go from there.
Thank you. Candidate Gabriel.
So, I mean, I would need to be in on the discussion of the amounts and, you know, what is appropriate, you know, and, you know, I've not been privy to all that information to make a decision on all of that. You know, what I would be for using the money wisely, and also to take into consideration, you know, some of the information that I've received is that circulation is down. The number of people that utilize the library is down. The meeting space is, I think, only utilized, I believe it was like under 30% of space or utilization. So those things should be considered too. I'm not opposed to libraries, obviously, but how extensive we renovate or rebuild should take those things into consideration, and to use that money wisely.
Candidate Gabriel, we will start with you for this question. If elected, will you support municipal efforts to prevent the further spread of COVID-19 under existing laws as supported by the League of Wisconsin Municipalities?
Okay, I did take some notes on that. Let's see, just want to refer to those notes. Okay, so I agree, obviously, with taking efforts to prevent the spread of this and any other virus or bacteria that lives in this fallen world that is fallen because of mankind's sin. We have disease and we have death. It's not the way God created it, but because of rebellion, this is what we live amongst. I looked into what the League of Wisconsin Municipalities said, and I would just disagree with the league's classification of this virus as a disaster, quote unquote disaster, warranting the wide-scale closing of churches and businesses and requiring individuals to wear masks everywhere they go. Comparing it in history, the Black Plague of the 14th century was indeed a disaster, as it estimated 75 million people died out of a population of 450 world population. Spanish flu in 1918 killed as many as 50 million, from what I've gathered. HIV/AIDS has killed 25 million between the years of 1981 and 2011.
Candidate Van Zeeland, your response?
Thank you. Yes, I support efforts to prevent the spread of COVID-19, as we saw in the League of Municipalities. Public health is a very important aspect of local government. However, as our health director, Director Egerbrecht says, we need to use the powers that we have appropriately. So not every intervention needs to be an act of legislation, I don't believe. And some powers that are delegated to the local community should be used sparingly, if not at all, so that we can maintain those powers. So, I also think we need to make sure that any action that we were to take, we would be able to enforce. And I don't think that necessarily means we want the police involved in enforcing those types of things. So it's a complicated answer, but we have powers to use to make sure that we are keeping our public healthy.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with you for the next question. Housing. Will you support ordinances and or other measures, including updating the comprehensive plan to ensure affordable housing in Appleton?
Yes, I think affordable housing is a real issue. It's been something that we've been working on since I joined the council in 2019. I know that there are already some parameters in place. I will say that because of COVID-19 especially, there's been an exacerbated need for affordable housing. We had the CEDC did a presentation, I want to say it was in October, about homelessness and the effect that it was having on people who lost their jobs or lost their places to live because of COVID-19. But I don't necessarily, again, think that the only way to do this is through legislation at the local level. A lot of it needs to be addressed above local government. But I do see that we could take part in things like educating landlords about, taking Section 8 vouchers and how easy that is for them and how it's advantageous. and then keeping an eye on projects that are coming in and offering, TIF incentives and tax credits to those who will also look at not just market rate housing, but housing below the market rate.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Gabriel.
So I was on the zoning committee for Calumet County. I was a Calumet County supervisor from 2002 to 2006. What I would say about comprehensive plans in general is that you want to make sure that you have local control and that you're protecting people's personal property. So those are critically important. And as far as, what I would recommend for young people, and I wish I had done this, a great way to obtain affordable housing is to learn how to build a house and to remodel them. To use those skills, using those skills could save you tens of thousands of dollars. I guess I would have to see what's being proposed in order specifically to respond to what the city may do about affordable housing.
Okay, Candidate Gabriel, this is a little extension of the housing. How can the city ensure affordable housing is available downtown so that people can shop and walk to work without the use of a vehicle? Many affordable homes that have been demolished over the past several years were around the Appleton Y. So how can the city control tearing down affordable housing? Should there be some kind of requirement to replace affordable housing in the big plan of things? Okay.
So again, I'm for personal property rights. So if people own homes, obviously they need to be, provided, equal value of their home and an opportunity to, relocate. They need to be provided that. And unless they're willing to do that, well, you shouldn't force them to move. They've got personal property rights. I know of projects that just did not pan out well for the city that we owe money. We lost money on the Richmond Terrace project. I know of other projects that I don't know how that's going, but we got to be careful about these things. With Richmond Terrace, it was just a bad investment, and even with the TIF, it didn't pan out well, and it's because people didn't want to buy luxury apartments in that location across from a gas station, and with not, it's not like there was a beautiful area.
Candidate Van Zeeland.
Thank you. I think I would just reiterate what I said before, which is, when we look at placement of the library and rejuvenating that neighborhood, we can look at affordable housing in that area, making it walkable, addressing things like the lack of accessible, healthy food. I think that's an option for us. And I think that most of the council agrees in that regard. It's very difficult to regulate what people would do with their private property. So again, what we want to do is make the environment rich for developers to come in and to incentivize them to make sure that they are keeping affordable housing as part of the housing developments that they're putting together.
Thank you. We'll start with candidate Van Zeeland. Appleton thinks of itself as a welcoming, open community, yet there are residents of minority groups who continue to report verbal abuse and discrimination. What can the council do to help Appleton be welcoming and inclusive for all residents?
I think it starts by admitting that disparities and racism exist. It's not always that the people who are doing harm know that they are doing harm or that they are acting on bias. But that's something that we can address through education and through the diversity and inclusion coordinator. I think where we start, though, is that as elected officials, we need to become trusted by the communities who need to report these kinds of things. I've been shocked by the number of people that don't feel comfortable coming to me directly to tell me the things that have happened, or to ask for the city to address a certain thing. So I think we need to be forward thinking. We need to build trust with these communities, and we need to look even further in things like with the police department, looking at how we can better manage interactions and make sure that we're always checking our biases.
Thank you. Candidate Gabriel?
So I understand about discrimination in my own personal situation with my family background. I'm Armenian, and my grandparents were discriminated against, being Christians, being Armenian in a Muslim country, and the genocide of the Armenians occurred. My grandmother barely escaped with her life. Her family members were murdered, and so that is discriminated. That was real discrimination. What I see in this country does not compare to that. I think people that have experienced or come from a background where their family members have been discriminated against, where there was racism, where people died because of it. I mean, do we see that kind of racism here? Honestly, do we? I don't see people being marched off. You talked about the Indians earlier, so that may have been an example of what happened in this country. I don't know all the details around that, but I do know that it's
Candidate
widespread.
Gabriel, we're going to extend this just a little bit. What are your thoughts about dealing with racial disparity in Appleton housing, policing, and opportunities?
So obviously there shouldn't be discrimination. There should be equality in housing and everything else. I think you need to be a little more specific for me to really respond to that. There's certainly laws in place in this country. I mean, America has been a land of opportunity. I mean, people flock here. They want to come here because they have opportunities, because they can do things. I mean, I see it, starting, I'm afraid it's starting to go the other way where, people are not being, fair, not treating each other right. I mean, so that's it.
Okay, Candidate Van Zeeland?
Again, I'll just expand on what I said before, which is the first thing that we need to be able to do is foster an environment where people feel comfortable coming forward and reporting these types of things. We can't address what we don't know about. So again, that's a reason for ensuring that we as elected officials are out there connecting ourselves to the community, and also really the importance of having a diversity and inclusion coordinator where people feel comfortable coming forward and speaking about the things that they are going through. So that's where it starts. I don't have all the answers, or I would have fixed it already, but that's where I would start.
Okay, we'll start with Candidate Van Zeeland for question 9. Will you support increased accessible and affordable public transportation within our Appleton community and link that transportation to other communities?
Absolutely. Having Valley Transit in the city of Appleton is really something that sets us apart from other areas. It's especially important for people with disabilities, older people, people who are marginalized, who don't have the funds to purchase a car and need to get, to the grocery store, just like every one of us. One of the cool things about Valley Transit is that it's really not funded mostly by the city. It's funded outside of the city with grants and with payments from the local communities that it's already connected to. And I can only see it being an asset to be able to link up to places like Oshkosh or Green Bay. I think it would really, it would be helpful for everybody to have that option. And I think it would also help us be able to make the transportation more accessible, as in offering different routes and offering services multiple times a day.
Candidate Gabriel.
So I think it's great that we're able to fund Valley Transit through grants and other things, and that is an advantage. There's many people that utilize the bus system. As far as I know, would be good to get more information on all of that to to see if certain routes need to be changed or maybe eliminated or expanded. So I'm just not privy to a lot of that information at this point. But I'm grateful that people that need that form of public transportation have it.
Okay, Candidate Gabriel, we'll start with you on the next question. Will you support more online services for our community, including non-social media communication systems accessible to residents so that they can participate in resolving governmental problems?
I think for people, I think it's best if people meet, in person. If you want to have, video of meetings and that kind of thing where people can see them, that's fine. But I just think personal interaction is far better. I certainly prefer that. I mean, we could have started a half hour earlier, if things were different. But I don't know if someone can present to me a real need for it. Well, we could certainly look into that.
Okay. Candidate Van Zeeland?
Absolutely. I think that one of the interesting things we'll see from a post-COVID-19 world is that we can do things over the internet without having to be in person. And I think that only benefits the people who maybe might not have been able to participate. I don't know why we wouldn't want them to participate. Busy parents, I have a young son. Sometimes my husband is working and I need to get a babysitter to take a meeting. And it's really definitely shouldn't be that way if we have the technology. So I could only see that being an added benefit going forward.
Okay, Candidate Van Zeeland, have you viewed the climate resiliency videos and recommendations of the League of Women Voters of Appleton and the phase 1 of the city's climate task force? What action should the city prioritize to deal with these concerns? What are your ideas for ensuring a transition away from fossil fuels, reducing waste going to landfills, and equity and sustainability plans?
Yes, I have read both of the proposals. I would say they're very extensive, but I think that where I would start is by explaining to people that there seems to be a disconnect where when people hear climate change mitigation, they think lots of money thrown out the door. And I don't think it needs to be that way. I think that we start with small things. One of the recommendations in the climate task force was something as simple as having a policy about turning the heat down at a certain time at night in buildings that weren't being used. Those are things that we already do in our own homes that save money. So that's where I think that we would start. And, we'd start to see those savings right away and we'd move forward from there.
Okay, Candidate Gabriel.
So I've not seen your study, so I really can't respond to it.
How about the city's climate task force?
So I don't know what they're proposing. I just haven't heard anything on that.
Okay, we'll start with you for the next question. Voter fraud in the state of Wisconsin, as reported by the Wisconsin Election Commission, is negligible, nearly non-existent. Across the state, our elections are conducted locally by members of our community. The results are verified at the polls, canvassed at the county level, and verified at the state level, and each step available to public viewing. Yet there are false accusations casting doubt on election results. How will you work with the council to dispel the hearsay to maintain and improve the faith in Appleton's election process?
So whoever came up with that is indeed their opinion, that question. Though there's millions of Americans who would disagree with that. No matter what you want to say about it, why do millions of Americans disagree and have a problem and concern over this last national election? I think the biggest thing was why would no court even look into the evidence? Wouldn't even look at it, consider it. To me, that there's something wrong there. And I've been an election inspector for the city of Appleton. I've been a chief election inspector, and I can tell you that the paper ballots are good, and the process of that, as far as I've seen, has been good. Although one thing we've never done is we've never counted the votes, on the paper ballots. We check, from the count on the tabulator with the count of the slips, that we give people when we give them a ballot. So we check the count between the number of ballots issued and the number that go through the machine. And those numbers need to be equal, obviously. But we've never, counted. The clerks are, test the machines. So they should be, seeing that
Thank you.
The numbers are coming out right.
Zealand?
I'll just keep my comments to the city of Appleton because that's what I can speak to. And I know that our clerk's office and our clerk, especially Clerk Lynch, do a great job managing these elections. I think, when there have been questions or concerns about absentee ballots, about anything, I've had people reach out to me directly, and I've reached out directly to the clerk's office, and we've handled things from there. I disagree with the assertion that these things aren't counted or checked beyond that, because there is a board of canvassers that actually goes over that information again to make sure that the information is valid. And as I understand it, the board of canvassers, chooses people from different political parties to make sure that they both have a say in that. So I think that we start by reinforcing the integrity of the election at a local level and by being transparent. And I think I've done that on my Facebook page, and I think the city's done that as well.
Okay, Candidate Van Zeeland, how can the city find adequate funding for road repair and infrastructure without borrowing?
That's a difficult question. One of the things that I didn't understand before being an alderperson was how municipalities are limited in handling their own finances. So there are state regulations that limit, the amount of funding that we can gather through taxes, things like that. We can't just make a budget like you do in your house to buy your groceries. So there are parameters we need to work within. And without with the limitations that have come now in cost share that we used to have through the state and the federal government, we really have no choice but to borrow. But we make sure that we're borrowing in a way that we can pay that back. So, there really isn't a way to do everything 100% cash in local government anymore. It's not feasible, but the city has done a good job of keeping the debt down and making sure that we are funding things appropriately.
Thank you. Candidate Gabriel.
So I know that usually when a street is redone, a third of the cost is covered by the state, a third by the city, and a third by the homeowners along that street. And that that can get expensive for the homeowners. And I don't know an easy answer to that question. I wonder if if cities, it seems like cities are always borrowing, but is it out of the question to actually save revenue and actually invest, maybe to gain income that could become from investing? I don't know if that's ever been considered, but it's an idea. I'm open to kind of studying the issue and seeing what else we could do.
Okay, Candidate Gabriel, will you support obtaining formula block grant funds as lobbied for by the National League of Cities to build back better this year, our infrastructure, workforce, housing, and to reduce gun violence?
So I would just, I guess I'm not sure really what you mean by, build back better. I mean, I've heard the phrase, I block grants. Yeah, I mean, block grants can be used for things that are needed. I'd have to see what's available and what's worthwhile.
Okay, Candidate Van Zeeland.
Well, like I said before, the city has a very hard time finding the funding to be able to pay for things like road repair and infrastructure outright for capital improvements. So I think that we should exhaust any opportunity where we would be able to get funding for infrastructure, roads, things like that. So absolutely.
Okay, we'll start with you for the next question. To appropriately represent constituents as alderperson, a candidate must have a strong work experience to fully understand the daily struggles our working class endured. Please share your real life work experiences outside of politics you will use to formulate decisions in this role. And please be specific.
Sure. So I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and we grew up with not a lot. I've been a working person since about the age of 11 when I started babysitting for kids who were 9 and younger. I've always had more than one job, even when I was in high school and sports, because I needed that to pay for the things that I needed just to go to high school. So I definitely know what it's like not to have a lot, but I also know what it's like to work and to persevere. I even as an adult, whenever I had a full-time job, I always had a second job waitressing or bartending. And, now I have a part-time job and I'm an older person and I'm going to school. And so I understand all of the struggle that goes into being able to do those things and being able to afford to do those things and to be able to pay your bills. And I know what it's like to not have enough money to pay your bills.
Thank you. Candidate Gabriel?
So I've been on the county board in Calumet County, and on various committees, and I've worked in the financial industry, financial services, and so I've dealt with the county budgets, and have experience with that. So the city budgets would be similar, at least as the process is similar. And so I've got experience, in those areas. I'm just kind of a frugal person myself. I mean, I don't live in a big house, about 1,200 square feet. And I'm just a working guy, really. I can identify with other working class type people, even though it's, I'm not an executive. I think I can identify with the needs of common people.
Thank you. Candidate Gabriel, we'll start with you. If you want to reduce or cut spending by the city, what would you cut and by how much?
So that's a good question. And the city, we do need to cut spending because we've been overspending for the last 10 years. And just recently it's been, I believe, in recent years, we've overspent by 17 million. I think it was 2019. It's been, basically overspending 10 million a year on average for the last 5 years or more. And so where do we cut? Well, that's a good question. I would say we have to be more careful about, the projects we take on. And because we've lost money in some of those. And, I would have to, have some experience on the council, and experience with the budget, to be able to address those things. But that's what the budget process is for. And it's a long, detailed process. So I would look into that and respond appropriately at that time.
Candidate Van Zeeland?
So first, I guess I would say this. I hear this a lot, that we need to cut spending, but we also hear that we need to increase services, and those things don't work together. The budget process is a public process, and it's something that I got involved in before I even ran for office, although it's taken some time to kind of get a full grasp on all of it. But we go through that budget, the council goes through that budget for 20 hours a month, and that's together, that's through Budget Saturday. We comb through that looking for ways that we can reduce taxes and reduce the cost of things. So that's what we're already doing. None of us wants to pay more taxes on the council either. We do borrow, like I said before, but the debt is something that we pay back, and we have actually a good bond rating from Moody's. So I guess it's hard to explain if we can't get into the details of how the funding actually works. But I would say that we're doing a good job of staying on top of things and trying to innovate to lessen the cost of services, but to keep the services at the quality that our residents want them to be.
Okay, we've done a lot of questions. I have two more, if you would bear with me and just do these two more. I know we've run over, but we got a late start. So all of the questions, I did skip some questions, and those will be on the Word document that I send to you for responses. So two more questions. We'll start with candidate Van Zeeland. On the second to last one, what would you like added to quality of life for Appleton residents in general and for District 5 in particular?
Well, I can say easily for District 5 that we, in the last years, there's been a study that the south side of Appleton really deserves another park. So that's something that's been high on my list. Especially because one of the neighborhood parks that is a park is actually a playground for the elementary school. So I think that we're underserved in that area, and it is something that I've been keeping an eye on and trying to work to resolve. It's probably going to actually involve being a multi-community type of situation with Harrison and the town of Menasha, but that's something we are working on. And then also something that I see as the representative of District 5 is, we don't seem to be the target because we're on the outside of the city for a lot of different projects and things. And, we have an area that I think is unsafe to cross to get to Lions Park, and I would like to address that. We don't have any enhanced crosswalks in our area. So that's something that I'm working on too. And I think those are really important because they really start with the kids in the neighborhood. And that's really important when it comes to for older folks selling their homes and to bring new citizens into the city.
Okay. Candidate Gabriel.
So, I'd have to look at, what's needed. I mean, I know the city had behind where I live. There's there was a place that was a farm. The city had planned for a park across from the Parkside apartments there. And I mean, that place was planned for a park for years when that farmer was still living there. It's not a park yet, but I don't know what the status of it is right now. Yeah, I would just to see, I would like to hear from, the residents of the district to see what they think is needed, and then respond accordingly.
Okay, and so our last question, starting with candidate Gabriel. Why should residents in District 5 vote for you?
So I have experience, working and with government with the Calumet County Board of Supervisors for 4 years, 2 terms. I've experienced, with the budget process. I believe that the Common Council needs another perspective. Honestly, I don't believe there are, strong Christian perspectives, that could help the city. And so I'd like to be, another perspective. I think, it's good to have, diversity like that. How about, having, more Christians, those that look at things from a wider perspective, a Christian worldview. And I would be able to offer that. And it's really one of servant leadership, following the example of Jesus, who was a perfect servant leader. And so I would, I want to talk to residents and hear from them.
Thank you for that. And candidate Van Zeeland?
So when I ran for office, I made a couple promises, and one of them was that I would represent people regardless of if my beliefs were exactly like theirs or not, and that I would try to make council a place that looked to negotiate before we looked to push things that were unpopular or push things aside for next year. And I feel that I've done that. I have people from both sides of the aisle who are willingly endorsing me, and I'm flattered by that. And I think if you take a look at my Facebook page and you see where I do my research and that I back my decisions, no matter how difficult, I have to say yes or I have to say no, but I know that I do the work and I put the work in to make the best decision for my district. And I want to be able to continue to do that.
Thank you. And I just have a few more closing comments that I would like you would all bear with me. We have some slides of upcoming forum. We have one forum left. Calumet County Circuit Court Branch 2, and I know members, there are a lot of voters in District 5 that are also in Calumet County. And this is a new position and for Calumet County. And so this is an opportunity for you to get to ask the questions to those candidates of why they would want to be county circuit court judges. And also there's going to be a town hall meeting that the League of Women Voters is going to put on. This is not a forum. This is, these candidates are not presently run, they're not candidates. They are in office and it's like a listening session. We are going to be soliciting questions from the community, from their voters, and find out where they're at with different kinds of things. So I want to give information on that. And then one more slide, two more slides. So Wednesday, for online voter registration is open until Wednesday. After that, you need, if you have not registered, you need to either go to your city clerk's office and register, or you vote on the election day. And if you're going to register and vote, you need to have both proof of residence and your ID. Online absentee balloting can be requested at myvote.wi.gov. We're suggesting that those are mailed in by March 23rd. And the in-person absentee voting starts Monday, March 23rd. Please check the municipality for the times, because they do sometimes adjust the timing so that there are some evening hours. Now, all of these recordings are going to be available on our website, and the voter guides. They send out all the questions to the candidates, and they give me a written response, and I collate them into a voter guide. And so this should be up within a week, because I have to give them some time to do the work and then get it set up. But we're pretty much on target. We have 11, 1, 13, and I think 15 is ready to go up. So, and of course the school board forum. Now, sometimes when you get an absentee ballot and you live alone, it can be a challenge to do this legally and correctly. So the league does offer services. If you need to have someone witness your absentee ballot, we will do this safely and legally. Just contact us at the league, league.appleton@yahoo.com. And if you need to check your registration, or you have any questions about any of early voting, tracking your absentee ballot, anything like that, myvote.wi.gov is your go-to source, and nonpartisan voter information is at vote411.org. So I want to thank the candidates again from City Council District 5. I appreciate you participating in this discussion. And I also have to thank the members of the league who helped make the forum work. Jean, our president, Julie, the time creeper, Dave and Barb, our tech people, who had a few anxious moments earlier this evening. Shirley, Brian, who are backups, and others. So I want to wish a good evening to all of you, and we'll hope you will join us at the Calumet County Circuit Court Branch 2 Judge Forum, and at future forums. April 6th, Election Day. Have a good evening.
Thank you.